So one thing that video did not talk about, it covered a lot of things pretty well, and it even covered some things that I didn't cover, like the wealth inequality and how that creates all new problems in that society. But one of the things that's unique about Singapore, really relative to a lot of other places, is we tend to think about states as being, here's the border, and everything inside the state is me, and everything outside that state is you. And Singapore, by necessity, has had to blur the borders between it and its neighbors. And the video didn't really talk about this, but one of the reasons Singapore has been so successful is because they were able to do this. So what I want to talk about is the expansion of this growth triangle. So here's Singapore right here. Like, you can't even see, it's underneath that star. That's how small this island is. It is real tiny. Oh, I guess you can see it over here. This is Singapore, right there. That's Singapore. I mean, that is tiny. This is actually Malaysia over here. This is Indonesia right here. That's the country of Singapore. So you can understand, this is going to be great. If I'm building big banks in here, fantastic. You saw the city in there, those huge buildings and all the living space and all that kind of stuff. Like, that's going to fill up that island very quickly. If you've ever been to Manhattan Island in New York City, you'll know that there's not a lot of space. Like, they had to create Central Park and set it aside just to have some space. But where are you growing food for New York? Well, you're not. You're getting it from outside and it's coming in. Singapore is in the same boat, but Singapore doesn't have like other Singapore spots that it can say, that's where our food's coming from. So what they did is they made a deal with Indonesia and they made a deal with Malaysia. And here's how this looks. They create these border agreements to expand the city. And they say, look, we're doing really well economically. Malaysia and Indonesia, you recognize this. Malaysia and Indonesia says, yes, we recognize how well you're doing economically. We're very jealous. Singapore says, you want a piece of the action? Let's work together on this. So they said to Malaysia, we got these bigger factories and we're kind of running, we don't really have the workforce for this anymore, but we've got a lot of the connections. So if we could move some of the land intensive factories, the big factories, over to Malaysia, this part of Malaysia, then we'll collect the taxes, your people will get, Malaysians will get jobs, you'll share this economic boom, everybody will sort of win from this. So the land intensive industries move to Malaysia. So we're not going to have factories on Singapore anymore. We're going to move those over here to this area. And it's going to benefit from the know-how of the Singaporeans and the labor force of the Malaysians, and everybody's going to win on this. Malaysia's going to get richer. Singapore is going to be able to keep those industries without sort of saying, you got to go because you can't afford to be here anymore. So that's one thing. And now the other problem Singapore's got is Singapore says, man, we got a lot of people. I really can't grow a lot of food here. So how are we going to eat? And so they make a deal with Indonesia. And they say, hey, Indonesia, this area here, particularly these islands out here, if you wouldn't mind, we'd like to grow food there. Here's the deal. Indonesians can grow the food. We will essentially buy it from them. We just want to make sure that food's coming to Singapore. So that food's basically earmarked for us. But that means that those farmers and Indonesia is going to get money as well. So they're going to benefit from all this growth as well. So this whole area out here becomes sort of farmland. I mean, not all of it, but the sort of some of the farming places become part of this. This is called Riau. And what this ends up doing is this ends up spreading the economic benefits throughout Southeast Asia. Now, you'll note this is very different than the model that we've had so far. This is not like hard borders, where Singapore is this thing and we're going to put troops on the borders and keep everybody out. This is much more porous borders. It's a different way of sort of states existing next to each other. Again, because of the size, they kind of have to do this. And the benefits for everybody is all the neighbor states really get to enjoy this as well. Sometimes these Southeast Asian countries are referred to as the little tigers because of their economic growth. Because China has been known as the tiger because of its strong economic growth, and the Southeast Asian countries have been called the little tigers because they've sort of have grown roughly the same time, and I don't want to say speed, but near the same speed as China has as well. They've been as successful as you saw from the pictures of Singapore. Singapore has been as successful as Shanghai. So that plays a role in this. Okay, so that is the growth triangle, which we're going to shift now to the golden triangle. The golden triangle, so first I want you to look at this picture right here. You're going to see a lot of this because you're going to watch a video here in a second that's a little bit longer. But if you look at this particular photo of the geography of the place, you know enough about stuff we've talked about so far that you can make some pretty good guesses about what's going on already in terms of demographics, all that kind of stuff. So what I see here is I see a mountainous area. I see it's very, very green, which makes me think that there's a lot of water. A lot of water, mountainous. Here's some things that I can probably guess. What can you guess before I give you some things? I would guess there's not a lot of people in this particular area. And in that area of the Golden Triangle, meaning sort of that little chunk of that chunk of East Burma, northern Thailand, and Laos, there's not going to be tons of people. Now, there's a lot of people in Thailand, just not in this area. A lot of people in Burma, just not in this area. It's going to be more sparsely populated. Another thing that we're going to know about this, because it's mountains, we would expect that there's going to be a lot of different cultures, ethnicities that have a lot of independence relative to each other, and that is the case as well. One more thing that I know we've talked about, but I just want to bring up is where you find mountains, you're also more likely to find independence groups that may be armed independence groups because they're able to resist governments. And that's what we're going to find in this area as well. This area is forested, it's wet, it's got rivers, it's got mountains, and it's going to behave sort of like those places. Now, I had mentioned this earlier, but the reason they call this the Golden Triangle is because the gold here is essentially opium. And opium is the thing that becomes heroin. So you're going to watch this video. It's a longer video. It's about 25 minutes long, so settle in. It's actually really good. I really enjoyed watching it, not just because it tells you stuff that I want you to know for this, but it really does sort of show the lives of the people in these areas that you may never actually visit this area to sort of see some of the cultural distinctivenesses, things that are distinctive about the culture in this area, the Shan people. And there's a lot of other groups. They focus on the Shan, but the Wa, the others in this area. And then we'll come back and we'll kind of finish this up. And so grab some popcorn, enjoy.